Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council on tonight of February 9th, 2026. Tonight we are a committee meeting for council. We will be starting with a meeting of the Committee of the Whole with all members of council present for a presentation from Tanco Lighting. And for that, we will have some introduction and background from Director Stone.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Thomas. Thanks for all council to entertain this topic on Tanco Lighting. Tonight, I have invited Jason Tanco of Tanco Lighting all the way from San Francisco, California. So he's traveled a significant distance to be here to make this presentation that we think is important. I think it's something that's key to note is that we do not intend to ask you for something immediately. So at some point, we'll have to decide whether or not we're going to do an appropriation and potentially to borrow money in order to pursue this endeavor. But I do not intend to start that immediately. We have several steps before we do that. However, I don't want to undertake those steps until I get a sense from you as to whether or not this is a good idea, and so you have to hear what Jason has to say and the presentation that he intends to deliver. Our relationship with Tanco Lighting started several years ago. Jason contacted us. He works with communities all around the country on municipal street lighting projects and initiatives and endeavors. We listened to his approach several years ago, and one of the things we undertook with Tanco Lighting was to do a street light inventory. And so the street light inventory helped us to validate the lights that we currently are renting from American Electric Power. I think you've had some discussion in recent times about the way that the city of Athens does street lighting, where a certain number of our street lights, about 2/3 of those, a little bit less than that, we rent from American Electric Power as a flat rate, unmetered lights, and then the remainder of those are on circuits that are owned by the city. The lights are owned by the city, the circuits are owned by the city, and we pay for electricity only. And when we undertook that streetlight inventory a couple years ago, we found that there were several lights that, over the decades, American Electric Power had been billing the city for that were not there. And so, we've already achieved some benefit from our relationship with Tanco Lighting, and we think that this initiative that he is proposing is something that we really would like to consider. It's important to note, and we can get into this when you ask questions during the presentation or afterwards, but it's important to note that the discussion you've been having about switching to a streetlight utility or a streetlight fee in lieu of paying for street lighting out of the general fund, while it's related, those are two independent activities. And so, we can pursue one or the other or both or neither. I think that's important to note before we get started. So with that, if I could just turn it over to Jason and we can get going.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? My name is Jason Tanko. I started this company over 20 years ago. I'm a kind of a freak of nature. I love streetlights. I love them. I played with them as a kid. I've always been enamored with them. I never thought I'd have a career in street lighting, and I'm just so grateful I get to work with something I really care and I truly love. So I think you guys can see the presentation. Is that correct? So we're going to be talking about the street lights. Just to be clear, these are the ones that light the streets at night. Every now and then somebody thinks it's the red, yellow, green. So this is all the street lighting that is in the right of way throughout the city. So just a little bit about us. So our company is very unique, sole focus only on street lighting. We're not a consultant firm who works on anything else. It is literally just street lighting. This is all we eat, breathe, and sleep. We've had almost 1 million lights in contract, and this is all over the country. You can see a good half of our work has been in acquisitions, helping cities and towns consider and actually complete the purchase and sale of taking over the lights. We actually do maintain fixtures. I feel it's a real advantage here because I'm not speculating on what future costs would be. I live them every day. So literally some cities have hired me and I literally had to put my numbers to the test because I have to maintain it and I have to, essentially go with the numbers and know what it is that, future costs will be when it comes to maintenance. And then with projects, just 300 plus nationwide, covering just all sorts of subjects around just street lighting. So a little bit of data that we feel is really important to kind of set the tempo here. 76% of pedestrian fatalities happen at night, as well as 72% of serious crime happens at night and outside. Street lighting has positive impacts on intersection crashes and seeing obstacles and things within the right-of-way, as well as its impact on crimes has been documented, reducing crime 36%. So essentially, why are streetlights important? Their sole purpose is really for the health and public safety benefit of the public. They help prevent vehicular accidents. When you're sitting at a red light and you're going to make that left turn, if there's not a street light over that, you won't see what you're going to hit until your headlights get it. So having street lights at intersections really helps see objects before cars get moving. Also see things that could be within the right-of-way. So it really does keep pedestrians safe, especially with a major university in the city. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic. They certainly encourage nighttime commerce. People feel safe to be out in the right-of-way. They're going to be out at bars and restaurants at night. And this falls well in line with the city's responsibility and its duty to control the right-of-way. So some data certainly pertinent to you guys. The audit had been done in 2019. These are the totals. As Andy had stated, kind of about 2/3 of the fixtures are with AEP. Again, it's like a lease or like a rental. So they own and maintain those lights. And then you can see 459 lights were owned by the city. So the study that we had looked at, the annual costs right now in street lighting are roughly $160,000. The irony is with the AEP lights, you're paying the most amount and getting the least amount of service. You're at the highest rate, and yet they don't go out and check the lights at night, make sure they're working. It's just literally, I put a light on a pole. People call the city right now thinking that you own the lights. They're calling you today saying, hey, there's a light out over here, and it's an AEP light. So you're already paying a lot and really getting the least amount of service from them. So we feel it's a really huge opportunity to improve public safety by taking over the lights, or at least considering it, and certainly reducing operational costs. Just get more bang for the buck, spending a lower amount and actually getting more for that. So this is a lot of numbers to throw at you, but essentially I'll kind of gravitate towards the year one analysis. So you can see under the existing, that $157,000, $466, those are your current costs. So if you move to the next column over to the right in the middle there, you see we think that will drop your overall operational cost down to $93,822, and that's even adding maintenance. So a lot of that is just reflected within the bill. You can see your bill is reduced by almost half. It's going from $146,000. Let me point that out. So it's going from $146,000 here down about $73,000. And then even with the added maintenance costs, you're still net up in this estimate, $63,000. These are conservative. I expect that this will actually be higher. We intentionally make sure that, you know, your savings are low, your costs are high. Typically, this will be higher. And certainly as they continue to raise their rates, this will even be better over time. So you can see in the top right-hand corner, we think that the total cost will be $491,000 with the rate of return roughly around 6.6 years. And then that $491,000 will yield over $2 million in savings for the city over the next 20 years. So what's really fortunate here, we're not dealing with weather or human activity, you know, based on how people turn on lights or heaters or anything like that. This is all published rates. You could look these up. That's what's kind of great about this. These are rates that currently AEP publishes around how their streetlights are billed. So currently, you can see in this one example, it's a 39-watt LED. This is roughly 70% of the system. You guys are paying $10.66. That same fixture for you to own and maintain under this model would be $3.57. And that's even with the maintenance added back in. So you can see the power is only 27 cents, but with the generation transmission riders adds another $1.80. But that's very significant savings. And then with this model, this is a much better maintenance. You know, somebody calls in to the city with a light out, it's fixed within 5 days, as opposed to calling AEP, and it just sits in a long line of priorities. So this is actually taken directly from the rate, just to be even more specific and make the point. But this is how AEP structures its rates. So you can see the energy charge in green on the bottom, you know, compared to the roadway 39-watt fixture at $8.59. So again, there's other riders and things that take that $8.59 up to that $10.66. So there are certainly other benefits of ownership. Certainly the reduced costs. I mean, that's fairly plain. But improved public safety. You know, streetlights in many ways are like police officers. They're providing guidance, lighting the way, especially on a night like tonight. You guys had a major snowstorm. There's ice. There's snow on the ground. It just helps people navigate the right-of-way so they don't trip or fall or hurt themselves. There's certainly the possibility of smart cities. By taking over these 653 lights, you now have a power socket essentially on each one of those lights that gives you access to smart cities where you could be doing intelligent traffic control. There's even detectors you could put on the light to sense when the ground is freezing, things like that. So it just gives you access to that. You don't have to do those things, but it certainly gives you more flexibility. And another great benefit here is we're not adding staff. This is all fully outsourced. We don't anticipate, you know, this huge increase in cost upon the city. If anything, you're already paying for this. So the reality is when you take over the lights, you actually have less to do. There's less problems. You're able to get on top of solutions quicker. This is actually going to be easier, is the irony. So the next steps as we see it would be to essentially we want to move forward and kind of test the system with acquiring it and taking over the lights with AEP, and at the same time look at what it would take to prepare the city for maintenance to take on these lights. Actually, that is it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
May I ask a question to Director Stone? Do you agree that no additional maintenance positions would need to be created to take care of the maintenance on city-owned lights?
I don't think so. I don't think so. So, you know, right now, the city electricians and street staff maintain those 400 and, forget the exact number, 459, that are city-owned right now. And so we do all of that. The ones we're talking about are those 653 or so that are AEP owned. They're unmetered, and so these are the ones that are in general up in the air on a pole. In almost all instances, we would probably contract for whether it be through Tanco or through somebody else locally, a company to do maintenance on those because they are attached to the higher voltage. Well, I guess in some cases they're not higher voltage. In some cases they are systems that stay energized the whole time. But I when we look at the amount that we pay per fixture per month, I really don't see a higher cost associated with that compared to, you know, once we own those lights.
Okay, and if I may just ask a follow-up, do you think the current staffing of the city personnel could handle a 150% increase in the number of light fixtures they were responsible
Well, again, I think the reduction in payment to American Electric Power would free up funds that we could use to hire a local company, basically, to do that. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do they require a lot of maintenance? Is that a
No,
regular?
no, absolutely not. I mean, in most cases, they're on for years. And now that we've transitioned to LED, so we're LED everywhere in the city, and that is an initiative that AEP undertook a couple of years ago. You know, these fixtures could last a really long time. But if they are out, you know, or need fixed or whatever have you, then that would be something that contract would cover.
Is this sort of predicated on AEP wanting to be willing to sell them?
Great question.
Do you want to handle that, or?
Well, I'll start, and then I'll let Jason take this. So we believe. So yeah, I mean, why would you, if you had this cash cow, why would you want to sell it to a city? I wouldn't want to if I were a utility. But at the end of the day, you know, it's a business transaction for them, and they have to look at what their investment is and what their, you know, what their annual operating cost is versus for ownership versus not owning it. And we believe that there is a position with localities in Ohio law that allows us to compel them ultimately to sell. And did I say that correctly, Jason?
Yeah,
You take a crack at
I'd say
it.
that's correct. I mean, there's really two paths that we see. Ultimately, we feel like you've got it through home rule as a home rule city. But I feel probably the best path will be the franchise agreement is currently expired and not signed. I think it's through that current agreement that we would essentially either reestablish a new franchise agreement or through that open window, essentially renegotiate to say, we'll be taking over the lights, we'll pay you off for the capital value that you're owed, and then we'll kind of take it from here.
Member Wood, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. A number of questions. So we would become owners of the thing, not Tanco.
Correct. Yes.
We would be, Tanco's role is,
At the beginning, Tanco's role is to help us get through the acquisition process. So that's something that there's not expertise locally in, and you know, valuing these and making the proposal to the utility to acquire these lights, I think, is probably at the front end. You know, there's a lot of work that ultimately will go into that. At the back end, we could choose to contract with Tanco for, you know, oversight and maintenance of the system, or we could choose to go a different direction. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, we will not own the lights, though. Yeah, in every scenario, the city would own the lights. This is your property. We would just act as a consultant to at least get you through to the end where you will own them, and then future maintenance is something that could be discussed. So.
Go ahead.
two more follow-up questions. One, what is your, I assume there are subcontractors, as mentioned, for the maintenance. I assume there aren't a bunch of Tanco trucks out there. And so I guess my question would be, are your subcontractors union?
So the way that the subcontractors would work, we actually operate all of our maintenance contracts out of California. So we're more of like a project manager over it. We actually have local contractors in every market. So the vision I would have is that essentially we'd work with the city to create a scope of work. This would be bid out. Contractors would then be allowed to bid this. The contractor would be contracted with the city to provide the maintenance, and then we would oversee them and make sure the billing is accurate, lights are getting done on time, and so on, and then working with any utility needs off of that as well.
And are any of the subcontractors union? Again, because, I mean, AEP, as they are, I mean, their workers are union electricians.
Yeah, they're IBEW linemen. I think any of those types of circumstances would be upon the city. I mean, it would be your bid. So I'm not sure if it's union only. It would certainly be likely Davis-Bacon and prevailing wages, which typically would cover whether it would be a union shop or not. So the wages would be the same either way. But yeah, that's probably outside of my purview.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last question, if I may. What happens to Tanco lighting when Jason is gone?
Well, I have no plans to retire, so I mean, I'm going to be around for a long time, and you don't even have to maintain with us. So, I mean, this relationship could be over within a year. You guys will buy the lights, and he and his staff are more than capable of taking it over. So this isn't reliant upon us. We're not like a linchpin in this. We're really just to get you through a short-term point where you transition and you own the lights, and then again, maintenance is, we're just an option.
Sure. I guess my reasoning for the question is that, again, 20-year plan, I assume you're not going to work for 20 more years, right? And so if we do, this seems great, by the way, just point blank, it seems awesome. Seems like a great relationship, et cetera, right? But kicking the tires on a long-term relationship with somebody else, you want to know what the succession plan is and what the business continuity is, right? I mean, that's kind of the.
So
that's my
our
question.
contract with the city would sever at your will. It could even be at, after you guys buy the lights. So this is not like a energy services company, where we issue guarantees, things like that. We're fortunate here, we don't need to issue any guarantees. The PUC already did. It's called the rates. So that's why, you could even call AEP. I mean, they would provide you the same information. So we're really just kind of acting upon it. So there's nothing requisite that has to have a long-term relationship between us and the city. This is really designed to guide you, point you in a direction, and then, we become less relevant. So, like I said, the maintenance is the only thing I could see where, potentially if it's concerned that it might be a lot for the city to take over, or even if maintenance is done by us for a year, just to help transition to one last point, and then it's taken over from there. So it's really your option. But
Member Isherwood?
So it's a quick question. I mean, so, we all go on the apples to apples site at the UCO and try and find the best rate. Is how do you get this significantly lower rate? Is it effectively a industrial version of that? Because the rate on the slide where you have the ownership change, the one's right there actually.
this one? This one? Okay.
I mean, that's a significantly lower rate. So how are you able to secure that rate?
I mean, this is what is published for, city-owned streetlights.
So AEP is not a great deal.
AEP is just not a great deal.
Yeah. And I have one other question. Do you have examples of cities in Ohio who have gone through this process of purchasing, and how has that worked for them? Is there?
So Cleveland Electric Power is probably the one example I could think of.
Yeah.
This hasn't been a common thing, although it's been common in other agencies, just not necessarily in Ohio. So this is a unique thing for Ohio. But in 2003, the city of Cleveland took over 17,000 First Energy streetlights and essentially negotiated a deal to take those over. Now, what's unique about that model is Cleveland is its own electrical power provider as well. Now, they didn't take over the utility in those areas. They only took over the streetlights. But that would be an example, is not even forming a utility, but just only taking over and buying out and maintaining those streetlights. That would be an example.
And one other question that so is there a scenario where we contract with Tenco and AEP just says flat out, no, there's no way, we're not selling.
I actually expect that when we engage with them, they will say no. But
Yeah.
fortunately, we're in the position, I kind of don't care what they say. You already are sitting on that power. It's really no longer their choice.
Yeah.
So that is a fortunate stance that the city is in because of the franchise agreement, and I think paralleled with its home rule. I don't expect that they're going to like it, but I mean, fortunately, the Supreme Court of Ohio has also backed this up as well. So I don't think that they have much room to move.
Okay.
Member Quadfoot?
So I don't know if you've had time to spend much time in Athens, but we have quite a few people in this town who care about migrating birds and about astronomy, because there's an astronomy department in the university. Do your lights point down so they're not going to be blasting the light upwards?
Same light.
So currently, the lights are converted to LED already. There's a possibility through the smart cities and controls that the lighting system could even be dimmed. It wouldn't gain any benefit on your bill. Unfortunately, right now, the AEP rates don't allow for dimming and getting any credit back. I would expect, if you're having any problems right now, those could either certainly be solved currently with AEP or they've already been solved. So my desire going forward is to have a master plan as well, potentially made with the city, that would establish better and clearer rules around color, temperature, who will, take over installing new streetlights when developments take place, things like that. So I'm not aware if there's currently a problem, but certainly if there is any light trespass or any lighting issues, it would be easier to solve when you own and maintain the lights, because literally could be addressed within a day or two. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? I have just one quick one. and I don't know if this is feasible, and this may be more of a Director Stone question. Thinking back over the last couple of years of some times where we've had what I know were AEP lights that were out and took like excessively long times to repair and get back on, to kind of fill the public in or to keep them informed, is there a map that kind of shows where our lights and their lights, I don't even know if that's even feasible, but that would show that if we bring these back in, we can get them back on faster than taking the whatever months AEP chooses to take often?
So the short answer is, the map of where they are is here. So I want to, I want to produce that product. We do have instances of some old data, and then certainly when Jason did his inventory a few years ago, we geolocated things, so we could produce a product that said this is things. The quality product that I want to include, it doesn't just include a fixture, but for the city-owned lights, the ones that are already city-owned, I'd like to show the circuit, and so it is on our agenda for products to produce, to be able to use not only for sharing with the public, but for internal management. So that's something that I definitely want to do, and we're working on, and I will promise to get that to you. If I can take a moment to talk about funding real quick, because I think that's important. And as I get, questions from you, then I'm get a sense of whether or not you're supportive of this endeavor, because ultimately that's what I'm trying to do tonight. Can we go to your backup slide that's got your costs specifically for acquisition? Was that it, or was it in the back?
Yeah, it's
Was it proposed pricing?
$191,500.
Yeah, so that $191,000 basically. So, or that $491,000 includes both the payment to American Electric Power and the payment to Tenco for their consulting services. I would like to proceed with my own authority with the current budget we have up to about $50,000 in cost with Tenco, and before that, I believe we're probably pretty close at knowing whether or not we're going to be successful in acquiring these or not. At that time, I intend to come to you and seek that $491,000 or whatever ends up being negotiated rate. That's the estimate, right? But whatever ends up being appropriation to be able to do this, and we may have to borrow to do that, and borrow on a short-term note or through some other mechanism to do that. And then, that's kind of where we get into that 6.5 year or 6.6 year return on investment. So, ultimately this is a short-term expense or a few year expense in order to determine a long-term savings. I don't want to, do that borrowing, do that appropriation until such time that I'm convinced that we're going to be successful. And, because if American Electric Power loads up with lawyers against us, and, we're going to have to make a judgment and a decision whether or not, Jason knows what he's doing. He really does. But, at the end of the day, it's the city that's going to be at the other end. So I think with the current appropriations, I can get to that point. But then 2 or 3 or 4 months from now, I'm going to have to come to you and say, hey, I think we're ready to go. I need an appropriation. And it would be a lot of good money after bad if we chose not to proceed at that time. So that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve this evening.
Member Cloud.
Director Stone, I know you are the king of getting grants for the city. You are so good at that. And also, Mr. Tenko, maybe you would know this too. Are there any grant funding organizations or entities that might offer the city some grant money to help with this purchase?
I don't know of any. This is really kind of a cost of doing business is the right way. The right way to describe it. But cities are responsible for keeping the rights of way safe, and I think that would be the general expectation. Where there may be a caveat to that would be in some traffic or crime safety arrangement, programs out there, which I'm just unfamiliar with for this particular application, but certainly we would keep track of it or look for them.
Anyone else?
I just want to thank Mr. Tenko. This is great. This is very interesting.
Yeah, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate the questions, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For coming from San Francisco.
Oh, sorry. Members of the public.
So you may need to come back up and answer this. Rob Dillich, live at 124 Morris Avenue. And there was a presentation very much like this in 2019, and there was news stories about it where this was considered back 6 years ago, over 6 years ago. And then I thought it was a good idea. I don't know why it didn't happen then. But that AEP has replaced the fixtures may change the equation here a little bit too. That back then it would have meant the city had to replace the fixtures to make them all LED. Since that part's been done, this might make this easier. But one of my questions is, if the city were not to able to negotiate with AEP, could they still purchase LED lights and take over, replace the fixtures themselves and take it over, or would it not be economical if that were to happen? That's my first question. And then you mentioned smart lights, and that these new lights from AEP sound like they're sort of smart lights. But if the city were to replace the lights, would they be able to install better lights that could be more effectively remote controlled and used, or are the ones AEP has good enough already? And then I guess my one sort of question in my head, other question is about AEP's poles. We'd be using their poles. Is there still a cost to do that, or what's going on there? I assume we don't have to move these off to different poles. But that there's still some way we can continue to use AEP's polls. Curious about that.
So I'll answer the first question, and then I'll defer to Jason for maybe a couple of other answers. So since that 2019 initiative, and maybe it was because we were making enough noise about it, American Electric Power chose Athens to be one of the first communities in the state that they replaced the high-pressure sodium lights with LED lights. And so as it stands now, I don't want to go on the record to say that 100% of our lights are LED, but I think we're about 99%. There may be a couple strange fixtures that are in backyards of places that they didn't get to that are still high pressure sodium. But we've had every single light in the city since then by American Electric Power converted to LED. Now, the city-owned fixtures are already LED. Those are ones that we had converted and on our own over the last 2 decades, or really the last 10 years. With regards to the question about, why didn't we do it then? Why are we doing it now? One of the differences is that the cost will be higher, right? Because, at the time we estimated back in 2019 that, buying old high-pressure sodium lights wouldn't cost very much, because from a capitalization perspective, they wouldn't be worth very much, and we could compel AEP to sell those for not very much. Now, they've got brand new fixtures, and so it will cost more, but at the same time, we wouldn't have to replace them. Because they're already LED now. And then to your last question about poles, yes, these are on LED or on AEP's poles. They would remain on AEP's poles, and we would just own the fixture. So if you want to add any color commentary to that, Jason, then I don't know if I did a good enough job or not.
No, that's great. I would just say in relationship to the poles, we would be signing, or we would have the city and AEP sign a joint pole agreement, allowing those lights to remain, as well as allowing for future attachments on the poles. The poles all sit currently within the right-of-way, so that's also covered within the franchise agreement. You're allowing them to distribute and transmit electricity within the city. Access to the poles will be part of this as well. I think you had a question in relationship to controls.
Yeah.
So the current fixtures, I kind of question if they do have controls on them. I'm actually wondering if anyone's even watching the controls. I wasn't really clear if outages that are currently taking place, AEP is even responding to, or if there's anybody actually watching, because at least when a light would be out, the controls would be able to send something, signal back saying, hey, this light didn't turn on, or this light's not functioning, that sort of thing. I'm definitely a big believer in keeping it simple. So, having lights that you can move on a rheostat, something like that. When a system is well designed, it won't require those kind of changes. So I would expect, with the fact that these lights have been converted a few years ago, they've got plenty of life going forward. They actually put in a really good fixture. I would expect any changes that needed to take place with the lighting has already taken place. So I'm not expecting that we'll have to put in shields or reduce wattages, things like that. We really do think this will be a simple merge in and take over. So does that answer your question?
Sure. Yeah, I think so.
And I do know that American Electric Power can control the lights remotely. Whether or not they're actively watching like every day to determine whether or not one has gone out or not is not a answer I know, but I know that we've made requests on specific streets after the LEDs went in, when citizens complained about them being too bright, that they'll dial them down. Yeah. So.
think we have some follow-up questions to that. Remember Claude Felder?
I'm just curious, when it comes to the poll question again, if we continue using AEP polls, will we have to pay them rent or something?
That was my question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not nationally supported. I mean, there's other agencies, this has been the case. There's really no cost or, degradation that that the streetlights would have to the poles. There's way more work on that pole from their own equipment or from, telephone or, Cat 5, Cat 6 cable, things like that. So just nationally, we have not seen charges for you to be attached to that, especially since it's already, again, that they're using your right of way, our dirt to put in their power system. So essentially, it's just been, we'll continue to attach, but there is no fee. I have seen some rate cases where other utilities have tried to pursue it, but they were really hard to support. Like what actual cost would be there? Why do I need to charge a rate? So I feel like I'm ready and armed for that if that's something that they come back and we try to pull. But
Member Easterwood?
Does this raise other electric needs of the city that, if AEP is particularly high, I know we have the solar array and other things that we should be pursuing. Other opportunities to reduce our electric utility costs? Are there other opportunities within this? Or is that for another day?
We could talk a long time.
Yeah.
Honestly, we could. I mean, there are some communities that have taken over electric distribution on their own.
Yeah.
And we have the authority to do that. I don't know that that's something that we want to do.
Sure.
AEP's is good at it, and they probably ought to let them continue to do that. But like the Village of Gloucester does their own electric
Yeah.
distribution, and there's a few other communities in the state that do that. So insofar as it's something we'd want to look at, I think on down the road maybe. But for now, I think we're content with what we have. We'll try to save however we can. I think solar is certainly something that we've done in a lot of different places. Variable frequency drives on pumps is another place where we've had a lot of success with saving some money, but we have more to do. And so that would be a place that I would look in the future. There was one other note that I was going to, but I lost it. So
Sorry,
Oh,
that's
I know what it was. It was I was going to ask a question that I know your absent council member would ask. And I think Jason can take, and because he's probably going to watch this and then he's going to ask the question. In Ohio, generation is severed from transmission and distribution, and homeowners, localities, whoever can choose to aggregate. They can choose the contract for different generators. We could do that with this as well, correct?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
If anything, it would be something you would do already.
Yeah.
From what we've seen.
And
other
we are.
cities do.
We
Yeah.
already are doing it right now.
Yeah.
So that would have been my answer had he asked the question when he was here. But should we pursue this and continue, we would still be able to source the best price for generation. So.
Anyone else? I think that concludes then. Thank you again.
All right, thank you. Thanks for
Jason,
your time.
thanks.
All right, that concludes Council of the Whole, and we will have City and Safety Services up next, chaired by Member Isherwood and joined by Members Almeida, Swank, and Wood.
So we have three interesting topics on our agenda this evening. The first came to us from the Athens Municipal Arts Commission, following a discussion that they had included the mayor. AMAC at a recent meeting voted to recommend an increase in committee memberships by 2 seats, one required to be a City of Athens resident and one be filled by an Athens Township resident. My understanding is the intent is to improve accessibility and broaden participation in their work. And we have this evening Kelly Reisbeck from AMAC to come and give a brief overview of that. If you would mind coming up.
Is this his computer? No. Oh. You can fold it in. Okay. Thanks for letting me come again with in front of you all. I was here October for sure because my arm was broken, but it's all better now. And we, as a committee, a commission have met and talked about how the first iteration of this was not going to be a satisfactory solution to what we feel is a way to invite more people to volunteer in and through the arts that is so prevalent and so well known, that Athens is so well known for. We are, my understanding, and now that we've passed this to our meeting on January 11th, I think, we voted to, as AMAC, voted to approve a presentation to City Council to change the city code, which is code 3.07.50, which established the Athens Municipal Arts Commission. And the current bylaw, 3.07.50, allows for 7 members who shall be appointed by the mayor. And they are joined by the mayor designee and then also a council person. Those 7 members, 4 members of the commission shall be electors of the city, so they live within city limits, and then 3 members may reside outside the corporate limits. Our proposed change is to the city code, like I've said, 3.07.50. Asks that we increase that number of 7 to 9, so 2 more, whereas 5, at least 5 members of the commission shall be electors of the city, and 4 members may reside outside the corporate limits but within Athens Township. So this kind of all started, this is 2026, I think in 2024, when some of my friends who are really into the arts but don't live in the city wanted to join and volunteer, but they couldn't because they lived in the township. And so there was 1 seat in the city, and I was chair for a while, and the work of the chair is to make sure that you have a full and working and seated commission, one of the jobs. And it was a lot of time and energy to, our way of doing is we like to meet people for coffee, see what their interests are. They submit a formal, application, I guess, and we kind of evaluate it and we meet with them and say, well, yeah, this would be great. Or once they find out that, we are a really active commission, we do a lot of things, they might say, oh, maybe I don't want to do it. That's fine too, but we just kind of be full disclosure, very transparent. And so we had a good year or so that we didn't have all 4 of the city, inside the city, seats filled. So good news is we did finally fill it, and they come on Wednesday for their first meeting. We're very excited. And so, again, we have we have people that want to serve, but because they don't live in the right place, it's preventing that service from happening and potentially affecting the amount of impact we could have for the good on the city. Again, we are all appointed by the mayor. The AMAC does not have a budget, so we are all just volunteers. And we do have 2 that are up for renewal in 2026, so later on this year. We have 1 that rolls off in 2027, that's me. And then we have others that roll off, I believe, in 2028. So it's like all the commissions, there's constantly a room for people to be replaced, and, either they renew or they say, no, I'm good, I just want to do my 3 years. So I feel like the more people we have that can be in city or township, the better off we would be to have a good and robust voice for the arts on the commission. So I will side note that one of the recommendations given to me in October of last year was, have you considered reaching out to students? And so we got, really inspired by that, and we have thought about a way to invite students that would be really not only great for us, but great for the student. There's a program at the College of Fine Arts called the Masters of Arts Administration, and they often have students that, it's a 1-year program, who do end up staying in Athens because they just, like many of us, they come here for college and they're like, I'm not leaving. So that could be the seat we kind of hold, or we strongly consider people that are Masters of Arts Administration students that want to continue their work and apply what they've learned in the city of Athens and for the city of Athens arts and culture. So that would be a great way to not only to kind of kill two birds with one stone. We have the university involved and students involved, and then we get some of that energy that gets back to the city potentially. So that's it. That's all I got.
Administration, any input?
The caveat that I would say is you may consider Athens and Canaan Township simply because there's a portion of the Athens corporation limit that is actually in Canaan Township. So if you were to limit it, that might be inappropriate.
Anyone from the public?
Rob Delich, 124 Morris Avenue. Serve on a commission and a task force. And Director Stone's suggestion is exactly what I was thinking, is Athens Township seems a little narrow, including Canaan Township makes sense. But I think other commissions, maybe this should be checked on. The task force, for sure, the Bicycle Ped Task Force, we do allow membership for up to 2 members outside the city within the county. And I think the Sustainability Commission does the same thing. They can be anywhere in the county, and it's a limited number, though. Maybe broadening this a little bit and just making it the county instead of narrowing it to townships might make sense. And I also love the idea of a student seat. We also have that on the Bicycle Pedestrian Task Force, and I think Sustainability also has the same thing, where it's a dedicated seat, so it makes us work to find a student if we need to, which I think is a good task to get students engaged. It is a good opportunity for the students, like you mentioned as well. So I'd endorse that idea of making it maybe a committed seat to a student. Doesn't have to be OU even, potentially. Thanks.
I do want to put 2 more caveats for full transparency. I teach in the spring the Masters of Arts Administration students fundraising and development in the arts class. So just so you know, I do know some of these students, and some of them are really great and stellar. The other thing is I did meet with Connor Lavelle, who is the county planner, because AMAC is also interested in seeing if we can understand or at least know about what the county as a whole, what all the communities in the county in a whole is doing to promote making the arts visible in our county. So they have their monthly meeting on Thursday morning at the Innovation Center at 8 a.m. So I'm going to go to that. And he did give me the Athens County Strategic Plan, which I think is now about 20 years old. So I'm learning a lot by reading that and just kind of educating myself about what the communities outside of Athens are doing. And so that could be something that would be just great for us to know in AMAC, who's just really concerned mostly about city spaces. So.
Okay. So just the member Swank did email in response to this when I sent out the packet to people, and he went through a number of iterations, but he did, much like Mr. Delac, have the idea that limiting this to Athens Township seemed to be not quite good, and he initially was thinking maybe including Canaan Township too, but and I agree with him in this, is that, and I'll open it up to the committee here in a second, but he expanding it to AMAC to 9 members, I think 3 members outside of the city limits, but in the county would be a good fit, to give you more opportunity to also include people from other communities rather than just those townships. Is that something that the AMAC would be open to considering?
I mean, I can't speak for all of AMAC, but we do have a meeting Wednesday, so that's convenient, and I'll definitely report that back. I mean, I have no problem with it. I would want to go ahead and check in with the city's mayor, because, you know, of course, he wants to make sure that, like, you know, it is a city-seated thing, and we want to make sure that the taxes that people pay are being kind of like returned back to them. And again, this all sprouted out from having a heck of a time getting a fully seated commission. And maybe that's common, but I guess AMAC we just don't like it. We just like to be fully seated because we need a lot of ideas and voices in the room. So, I mean, I will definitely bring that up to everybody, but wouldn't want to mention it and pursue it if it was just going to
Sure.
be not something that the mayor would be interested in.
Well, and I do know that myself and I know Member Swank, this would put it in line with the Recreation Advisory Board, which allows
Right.
members outside the city, but it's in the county.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and I do think it, at the very least, it would have to extend to the township and to Canaan Township. But if you're going to extend to those to Canaan, if you have a really good candidate who maybe lives outside those two townships, maybe works in the city,
Oh, I
and
think
has,
there's
or
many
is
of them,
connected,
sure.
or has the
Great connections, yeah.
would have, were a student perhaps even, would have been a great candidate, but they live in Amesville.
Yeah.
And so you would lose out on that individual, but they're still
Right.
in the county. So
Right.
that I just want to raise that. And then I just want to open up, any members of the committee want to ask anything or raise any issues with this? Member Wood?
I'll just add that I'm very pro opening up to the whole county. I think that just makes sense. Again, there's great artist communities throughout our county. Amesville is an excellent and thriving artist community and has done a lot of work. Gary Gooseman has done a lot of work writing grants out there to bring in things with the Grange and such to have a designated artist space and cutting out folks like that with great ideas seems silly to me if they
Yeah.
want to be involved. So I don't think there would be anything that could possibly that the body would ever be like nefariously moving our tax dollars out of the thing, right? It's all to benefit the net artist community. So I think that let 1,000 flowers bloom.
That's lovely. Maybe that'll be the next mural.
We'll talk. Yeah, I'm sure Keith
Yeah,
can
that's
whip
right.
that
Oh, yeah,
right up.
Keith, get him in here. So,
I'm not sure what next steps here would be. Do we,
because that is different, like if AMAC says, yes, let's open up to the county, do I start coming back and then I go back to first reading? Or
Well, we
do
haven't
I
even had first
graduate
reading.
to second reading?
Yeah, because we haven't had a reading yet, you could make any adjustments.
Okay,
You would send them in to President McCary and Member Isherwood. And those could all be made before first reading, discussed at first reading, and even further addressed at first reading, which would be next week.
okay, first reading is next week, okay.
Is that right? Yeah, assuming you have an opinion from the
So-
committee.
So I have to not just be me, it has to be all of AMAC, and I think we would definitely need to have that be a public meeting situation, I think. So I won't have an answer until 7 o'clock on Wednesday. So that's the best I just don't want to speak for all of AMAC, and I
Yeah.
want this to be at a public meeting that we talk about it, so.
About the mayor needing to approve it as well.
Yeah, and I need to connect with him and be like, how does that, yeah, because to your point, he might be like, I don't know, we'll find out.
So you could see if that works out time-wise for next week, or you could put it off to the next committee meeting, give more time for all of that, make adjustments, and then it would be first reading after
3
the
weeks.
17th, 3 weeks.
Okay.
yeah.
We can make that,
So
I know.
I think I think what makes sense is I'll also reach out to the mayor, and
Okay.
if this way of doing it, expanding to the county, which I think is largely the only change that I think that we're hearing from the committee would like to change.
Okay.
And if the mayor's opposed to that, I think we'll keep it at committee and have another committee conversation with the full committee to see, have a public conversation on that. If AMAC is opposed to that too, we can have you guys come back and have that conversation. And then, but if not, if there seems to be on your Wednesday meeting and then also the mayor isn't opposed to it, and if we can get it ready by Friday for by noon on Thursday.
Okay. Well, I think
I mean, there's not necessarily a huge rush to do this.
there is not. There is not. We are
so-
fully seated.
Yeah.
We AMAC and people, especially me rolling off, been on it for a long time, just trying to think of the next 3 AMACs.
Yeah, that's
To
great.
just make it easier for everybody to serve in and through the arts.
Well, I
So
said
12 noon
then,
on
why don't we
Thursday
aim
to
for
you?
3 weeks as opposed to rushing it for Thursday? Okay,
I'm good with either way, yeah.
okay, well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a very exciting grant program. Drones for First Responders grant program. This is an exciting project that I'm hopeful the committee will advance quickly to full council because, as I think Director Stone will explain, time is of the essence. I have spoken with both Director Stone and the Chief of Police, Nick Magruder, about this project, and they're both very excited about the opportunities this provides and the capacity this will add to the Athens Police Department. And so I think I'll turn it over to Director Stone because you'll explain it better than I can.
Thank you. Never issue it. So our police chief has done a great job in applying for this program from the state of Ohio, and believe it or not, it's funded through ODOT, which you typically wouldn't see for a public safety endeavor. You think typically for public service or transportation, but for whatever reason, ODOT is the entity, probably because Fly Ohio, which is the sub entity under the state that's really looking at drone technology and rollout of the UAS, unmanned aerial systems technology, is residing in ODOT, so it's logical that it's going through them. But what this grant does is it allows 10, and I think in all cases they're police agencies, but they're first responder agencies across the state of Ohio, to acquire up to or to gain up to $300,000 in reimbursement for acquisition and operation of a drone for first response. So ultimately, we're talking about an unmanned aerial system that would be owned and controlled by the Athens Police Department, and then subsequently would be able to be dispatched by our police dispatch for not only response for the police department, but also in support of the fire department, in response to the EMS, in response to the U.S. Forest Service, for instance, beyond the wider limit of the city, and really this comes down to having a tool that first responders can use in any number of situations in order to help aid in public safety response. The program is supposed to be rolled out very, very rapidly. And there is an agreement, and I don't know if Clerk Walker has shared the agreement, or perhaps you did, that we'd be asking to be approved next week. And so what I'm asking for is, number one, authorization of me to sign this agreement, because I have to return it on the 17th of February. That's the restriction by the Department of Transportation. So it would have to happen very quick, as well as to appropriate up to $300,000. And we won't do it out of the 580 fund. That would be all reimbursed under this program within 30 days of us submitting the request for reimbursement to the state. And we're supposed to have this acquired within 90 days. So this is a very, very fast program. Where we see using this is ultimately placing it under control of whoever is the officer in charge on duty at any given time, operated by the police dispatcher. As you know, we have a 24-hour dispatch in the Athens Police Department, and so the idea would be that the feed would go back to the dispatcher and be able to respond completely. There's a number of different use cases that we've talked about. One of them of late that we've been having a significant problem with, and this is in the crime perspective. I mean, we all can think about like major events and being able to put eyes on major events before something significant happens, or fires. But one of the criminal situations we've been having a lot is car break-ins. So car break-ins in the city have been a problem of late. We see this as a situation where someone can report someone fiddling with cars, and this can get there much faster than a cruiser can. And in a lot of cases, a cruiser responds, and by the time the cruiser gets there and turns down the street, whoever was fiddling with the car, steps away, and then you can't really say that was indeed the person, whereas this technology would allow us to get something up there and get eyes on before the person would really know. A second application that we talked about, or use case, is voyeurism. Over the years, we've had some significant voyeurism cases. Perhaps some of you remember a few years ago on the west side, we had a pretty substantial instance of voyeurism, where people night after night where a person was looking in windows, and this is something that you could get eyes on very quickly in a situation like that, as opposed to waiting for a cruiser to get there, which takes several more minutes. We were talking about other use cases today, and Andrew, my deputy, found a situation in Cleveland here recently where they already have some unmanned aerial systems that they use up there, and in support of a suburb in the Cleveland area, found a serial pooper that was in their park and was every morning defecating in the same spot, and they weren't able to catch this person, and ultimately the drone figured out who it was. And so there are a number of applications, and we think this is going to be a great force multiplier for the police department. There's some really good privacy protections that go along with it, and transparency aspects that I can certainly speak to the way that I understand the program if you have questions on that. So this is something that I'm looking to do, and the police department's looking to do, and we hope you support it.
Okay. Any members of the public? Any questions?
Thanks, Rob Delich, Morris Avenue here in the city. Yeah, I'm a new drone pilot myself, just recreational though. I put off doing that for years, found the right drone, but as some of you might have seen some of the footage, one of the concerns when the government starts using drones is the transparency and sensitive, that there need to be privacy restrictions, so it's not being used for surveillance and things like that. So those things are important. I think Director Stone just mentioned that there's already some things that maybe come with a system that would support some of those, which would be good. But for example, warrantless surveillance is something we want to avoid, and whether or not our code has such restrictions in it now, or if this is new technology we need to address in some way to make sure that there are restrictions on its use without warrants unless there's an emergency situation or at least a call. Like Director Stone gave some examples where there be a call that's being responded to. Potentially that might be okay, but we need those parameters really outlined so that the police department and the operators of the drone are working within what is a situation that doesn't infringe on people's privacy and people's rights. So as long as we keep those kind of things in mind, I think this could be a good program. Thanks.
Director Stone, you want to respond to
Yeah,
that?
I can speak to a couple things. I know that there's a couple privacy restrictions that are or controls that are built in. Number one, we've got some experience with body-worn cameras right now, and that body-worn cameras are all subject to Ohio public records law. So, in all cases, when there is footage being shot with a body-worn camera, that is a public record. Now, we do have to redact certain things, like faces of minors. It's sometimes difficult to immediately produce those records, but that's something that if someone were to ask, anybody were to ask, they saw the drone flying over, they could say, "Hey, what were you looking at?" We would have to, by law, right now, provide that footage. Number one. Number two, privacy protections that are built in specifically with this system or these systems that we're looking at under this DFR program is that there's no recording that takes place while en route to a call. So, the call is what triggers the recording or triggers the response. And you send the system, you go to an address, and they're not watching all the way to the address. It's watching when it gets there. And so there is at least a call that is the hey, someone is looking in my window. And so you're not looking the whole way and filming. And so we do not plan on doing random patrol flights. There's no facial recognition that's built into these systems, so that's something I think that is a concern that we all have about the surveillance state these days is facial recognition, and that's not part of these systems, and we don't intend to use it for that. Monitoring of lawful activities is not something that we intend to use the system for as well. However, because this is in support of not just police departments, it's in support of other activities as well. So, somebody getting lost in the Baileys, and then looking for that person, that's not an unlawful activity. But if somebody says, "Hey, I can't find my, you name relative," I think they're lost there. This is a tool that we can use to do that. So, I wouldn't be opposed if you wanted to pass legislation in support of restrictions on how it's used. If we don't believe that state and federal law is caught up yet with it, certainly that's something that I would be open to doing. I think really, it's just a function of the technology. Like right now, an airplane can fly over your house, and someone can take a picture out of the airplane, and that's allowed under federal law. It's just that the drone technology is a lot closer and more invasive, and so if that's something that we would want to do, certainly I would support it. But I don't think we should not do the program.
Yep.
For this.
Would the city make flight logs available?
Yes. Yeah, the flight logs, every single flight log, every time the thing goes up in the air, that's a public record.
And so you said that you wouldn't do random patrolling with it, but let's say if you had the Halloween festival, you knew you were going to have 30,000 people on Court Street, would you deploy it possibly for that to help?
Yes, absolutely. And then the log would be a public record
Yeah.
to know that it went to this location at this time and this path and everything else.
And would it be recording, or would it just be is it automatically recording everything it sees, or is it the case of there's now an incident, now we start recording?
Yeah, I think that's a matter of policy, and ultimately that's how we set it up, right? So I can describe how we do body-worn cameras at the moment. So body-worn cameras that we use with the City of Athens, with the Axon system, starts recording in a couple different scenarios. So they're always recording and then recording over, right? So, if I got a body-worn camera on, it's watching you right now, and it is recording that, and then it's writing over top of it immediately. As far as saving the recording, it saves the recording on three different things occurring. Those three things with our system anyway occurring are, number one, the officer hits the record button, and what it does is it saves 30 seconds from before that officer hit that record button until such time that they shut it off. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if that officer draws his service weapon. The third thing is if the officer draws his taser, his or her taser. And then the fourth thing is if the officer is in a cruiser, if the sirens and lights turn on in the cruiser. And it starts to save anything from 30 seconds before that happened. And so I would anticipate we could probably, from a matter of policy, do something similar for this system. Does that help explain?
Yeah, no, I think that goes to a lot of the concerns that that would be the kind of thing and that you would expect, and I think that would alleviate concerns about this. But I do agree with you, the utility, that the opportunity for Athens Police Department, and I when I sent this information out to the committee, the example I gave was you have a loved one lost in the Baileys, and no one knows where they are, and it's getting dark, and we can't find them.
Right. This
is a great use of that, and this was much more like that than finding people pooping in parks. But,
Sure.
But if we can do that too.
Well, the voyeur thing was something, honestly, that I didn't think about, and
Yeah.
that was a suggestion or a use case that was described to the chief today, and understanding that we've had that problem in Athens in the past, and being able to catch somebody doing that is hard.
So in that situation, you would wait, you wouldn't deploy unless you had a report someone has been seen. So it's not a case we're going to patrol the west side hoping to catch this. So it's triggered.
What's wrong with the west side, Paul? I don't know.
You said it was happening on the west side.
That's where the voyeur situation
I'm an
happened.
at-large representative. I love the whole city.
A few years ago, that's where that occurred.
Yeah.
But it could be any section of the city. If someone called and said, hey, I just saw someone looking in my window,
Yeah.
this could get there a lot faster than an officer could.
Other members of the committee? Okay.
No.
Oh. Yeah, do you want to?
Who are you
Member
calling
Wood.
on? Thank you. Yeah, I don't like it. I'm against it. I, from the civil libertarian in me, is firmly not keen on anything like this. I feel like any cop in the world worth of salt can say, on the way to a thing, we saw this thing flying. That's a pretty common trick. And if it's a body cam, it's actually on a human, and it's ring fenced to what you can see from the street as a person. Drones have a whole different level against it from standpoint of what we see right now with Palantir and Flock and this kind of thing. I think in general, we've given up so many civil liberties in my lifetime since 9/11, where we do it pretty freely, and it's nearly impossible to put it back in. And so I just, for those reasons, I find these sort of things to be you can't put it back in the bottle. You can't say that you know, we're going to have the perfect enforcement or whatever, that everybody's going to play nice. Yeah, I just am pretty, and I'm also aware, I mean, one of the folks that sponsor circles that we worked with to move here from the Ukraine, she's a drone pilot back in Ukraine now, knowing and hearing intimately about how those are used right now as part of that effort. Yeah, I just doesn't sit good with me, so I'm pretty against it.
Member Almeida.
I was curious about long-term costs for maintenance, like with software, equipment. It's in the what? It's going to be outside, so the equipment could be compromised by the elements. What would that look like?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's. Thank you for asking the question, ma'am. The first couple years are 100% free, or 100% reimbursed rather, with this program. So I think free to the Athens taxpayer. After that, we're going to have to decide, you know, what we want to continue to subscribe to. I think the basic equipment will be something that the city of Athens will own. Some of the subscription services that we would use for, say, keeping track of saved video, you know, similar to what we do with Axon and the body worn cameras right now, and management of that data in the cloud. The ability to go and, you know, press a button and it to automatically fly to a geo-referenced location. All of that will be a software subscription that we'll have to continue to pay to, and it could be, you know, tens of thousands of dollars a year after the first couple of years. And so we'll have to decide how much of that is worth continuing at that, and you know, we'll have to figure out how to put that in our budget. So it's a great question, honestly, and we had to make that decision with body worn cameras ultimately because, you know, there's a lot of the communities that rolled out body worn cameras tried at the beginning to keep their footage locally, and they found very quickly that they were overwhelmed by the data storage requirement. And so the ability to store that in the cloud was something that, you know, most communities that use body worn cameras, like almost all of them, have to do, and you pay a subscription for that. And so that'll be a decision we'll have to make in a couple of years. Again, I don't think it's a reason not to do it, but it is a consideration, you know, a couple of years from now.
Okay, thank you.
If, say, in 2 years we did this, and in 2 years decided we really haven't used it that much, it's not worth it, could city then just mothball or sell the unit?
We could.
Yeah.
We could mothball, sell it. We could just use it for, you know, like, you know, fly and view, like a closed circuit TV only, but not keep track of the record, or not keep a record of it, and not have any kind of, you know, back end subscription support. So it'd be kind of like a lower, kind of like Rob's drone that he flies out of his house. I don't think he's got. Do you have a subscription service for your system? Sorry.
There's an option for that. I do just store it all locally, though.
Okay.
I do not opt in for the cloud storage.
Yeah.
It would be a considerable amount to store long-term, and so I understand. I do have some concerns, to Mr. Wood's concern about storing in the cloud. Depends who's managing that for the organization, who owns that space. That could be the concern.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think that that's probably a necessity. So, but we need to think about those kind of things for sure.
I just have a timeline clarification as I was reading through this. You have the 17th as a no later than, and we meet on the 17th. We don't meet on the 16th next week. It's President's Day.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not see that before.
Oh. I will ask tomorrow. I mean, I don't think it's fair for me to ask you to have a special session tonight, so I'm not going to ask for that. But you know, I'd like to think that, you know, since they just rolled out a press release today that said City of Athens won this, that they wouldn't say never mind if I got it to them on the morning of the 18th. But I will ask. I'll sign it that night later after you pass it and send it in.
Member Wood.
Yeah, I think I would add to that too. I don't know what drone pilot training costs, but I think most pilots have to be certified. There's probably a cost with certifying all of our dispatch to do so. That's an additional cost. Secondly, to Rob's point, the voyeur can also be the cop watching flying over my house, right? Like, let's be honest here. I like, if I want to be naked in my backyard, I've got my privacy fence. Nobody's going to see over it. Well, now suddenly I got to worry about cops flying over with the thing. I've got no way to prevent that. There's no guarantee. In fact, it's pretty explicit that they will do that, right? If I saw Rob's drone flying over my house, I'd probably shoot it. Like, I just, again, I think that there's sort of it eliminates common privacy for people that are in the path of this thing. Cop car does have to travel like on defined streets, and I can protect my backyard from that, so you can't see me naked in my backyard from the hill. I can't do that with a drone. Because it's just there, and anybody that's seen various things from TSA posting about seeing so-and-so's sex toys or seeing so-and-so's things posted from the TSA or invaded. I just don't think there's the requisite pieces in place to make sure that this is done either, even not nefariously, right? But just like, hey, look, so-and-so, there's Mr. McGillicuddy naked in the yard again. I just, I think that's part of the voyeur part that can't be missed as well. So, just putting that out there.
Do you want to speak to the training courses?
Yeah, I can speak briefly. So what's included, and I just read it here over the overview of the technical package, is training and operational templates, initial training, part 107, intro or refresher as needed, virtual DFR training, and standardized standard operating procedure and concept of operations templates covering dispatch to launch, abnormal emergency data handling, and maintenance are included in the package. So the initial training of all of the operators would be included with the cost and the grant reimbursement. To Member Wood's point, my dad and I were having this conversation right before I came to this meeting about if someone were flying over us at our house. He said, would he get in trouble if he took a shotgun and shot down the drone? And I said, federal law is you can't shoot an aircraft. You can't do that, and that's applicable to a drone, whether it's the city of Athens or whether it's Mr. DeLoach's drone or whether it's the Cessna that's flying around. As it stands now, you can't shoot an aircraft. Is that a reason not to do this? I don't know. I do know that that if a police officer uses a law enforcement system illegally to keep tabs on you, and an example is LEADS, which is the law enforcement database, and accessing that law enforcement database for their own personal gain, they can very, very easily lose their law enforcement license and their OPATA certificate. So instances a few years ago where there were officers accessing LEADS data, they saw an attractive person in a car, they ran their license plate, found out what they lived, and sent them a note or called them on the phone. Very quickly, we realized that was state of Ohio, realized that was a problem, and so that LEADS access is extremely controlled, and you can get in a lot of trouble if you misuse that. And so, to that end, the controls on the Athens Police Department, I think, are probably a little higher, and that they'd lose their livelihood if they misuse the equipment versus a hobbyist who's looking in your backyard. And again, it's still illegal whether you shoot down the hobbyist drone or you shoot down the police department's drone. But like my dad said, he'd take his chances and ask for a jury trial and hope that the jury found him not guilty because of the infringement on his privacy.
I guess now that we've established the likelihood that people will be shooting at this, and I think I asked you about this already, maintenance, and you already spoke to me, but you believe that's something that's within the city's capabilities?
I do. Yeah. I do. Ultimately, a lot of these things are not super expensive. The system, the launching platform, the docking port, and that sort of things are really where a lot of the cost lies in, and those individual parts to replace is something I think that we could probably handle.
Okay. So not ignoring Member Wood's concerns at all, but because of the timeline, I'd like to move this forward, and then you can continue to raise those objections at first reading. Do we feel that's okay?
I mean, I've stated that I'm voting no.
Yeah.
So, you can override it, I suppose. I don't know how it works with 3 members. We haven't had that discussion. I think that's a Micah question.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move this to first reading at full council at the 17th.
We would need to see if there's a second. Okay. Seeing no second,
Seeing no second.
I'm not seeing that this is moving forward. I would suggest maybe any additional discussion before the chair decides to move on.
The other committee member.
Member Schlenk.
Yeah, I think members I think would have voted for this, but I guess the
Well,
only.
that's not really how it works.
No,
is it?
no, it's not. No,
We don't reopen it. We said it. Nobody motioned, so it's done.
No, I accept.
Yeah.
Okay. The next issue on the agenda is the North Hill project. This is in regards to, I don't have a huge information, I'm not sure Director Stone does either, but this is about starting the process of getting to tackle the issues on North Hill, particularly along Columbia Avenue. My understanding is the city is still investigating the cause of these persistent breaks, and this may require a number of different solutions. And so, members, Director Stone, can you speak to what we need to do here?
I'm Director Stone. I'm not Member Stone.
Oh, sorry.
You're members.
Apologies.
So to that end, I don't purport to be part of this austere body.
Sorry.
The North Hill has had several water line breaks over the last 6 months. We're not entirely sure why. The lines are aged. The pumps are not that new, and so what we're asking is for an appropriation and authorization right now of $200,000 to do a project on the North Hill. That project will probably include some replacement of water line, some placement of VFDs on pump systems, or perhaps other improvements to pump systems in order to lessen the breaks that are occurring. And I don't have an exact scope right now, but understanding it takes you 10 weeks to pass something not under suspension, and I don't want to ask for suspension, except when I need it. I'd like you to go ahead and start appropriations and authorization now.
Okay. Anyone from the public have any questions? Anyone from the committee? Member Wood?
Yeah, I just say thanks so much for taking this on. I know it's been tedious. I know we've had members come in, the public come and talk about what they're going through, and also highlighting the city crews working in snow and ice and absolutely shit conditions. And so I really just want to say thank you for taking quick action. Thank you to the administration for moving on it. Obviously, it's been tough for the residents. We've heard a lot from them, and they've been very patient. But yeah, I just wanted to say that this is a huge undertaking, and commend you all for doing it. It's sincerely a really appreciated effort. So on behalf of my ward, thank you.
Any other members? No. Okay. Well, I don't have the ordinance language at this point, would that be something we would get this week? Is that,
Appropriate and authorize $200,000 for
Yeah.
emergency, or for a water line project over North Hill.
okay,
Is that out of the water fund?
740 TC 500. We've done this a lot.
Unfortunately.
so I'd like to make a motion to move that to full council next week. In a second.
Second.
Okay. Can we get a vote?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and so moved. And that ends city safety service.
Thank you. Next up is transportation, chaired by member Clodfelder and joined by members Isherwood, Stazer, and Swank.
I'm not on transportation.
Oh, you're not? How am I getting? Swank, Wood, and Stazer.
So tonight, the Transportation Committee has just one item, but it will take a little while to go through. So this is in regard to the 2026 requested street closures for festivals and other events in the Uptown District. So I am going to read through each of them and the roads that would be have been requested to be closed to put it on the public record.
Point of order. I have to recuse myself again this year from this, obviously.
Oh.
I don't know if we have quorum with me recusing myself, but I'm going to go to the hall.
Okay,
I think that ends that.
thank you, Member Wood.
We don't have a quorum for the committee.
All right, so do I read it to enter it into the public record? The first one is April 11th. We kind of need to let these people know what's going on. I wanted to do it 2 weeks ago, but. Okay,
Yeah. It would be close, but it would be done.
okay.
Yeah.
So that concludes. So with Member Wood departing because he could have been perceived to have a conflict of interest, we only have 2 members of the committee, so that is not quorum. And therefore, I will not be reading this tonight. We will do it at the next committee meeting. And then we may have to suspend the rules to get things passed quickly, because the first of these requested street closures is for Saturday, April the 11th. And if we can't get this handled until March, those people won't have a lot of notice for their event.
Thank you.
Yep. So that concludes the Transportation Committee for the evening.
Thank you. And we will be coming back to Finance and Personnel Committee, chaired by myself and joined by members Clodfelder, Stazer, and Wood. Welcome back. We have several items on finance and personnel tonight. The first one to start with is a pretty straightforward and simple one. Title 17 Municipal Income Tax Refunds and Definitions Updates. This happens just periodically when ORC updates or makes any changes to terms and definitions in their code, and then we have to adjust ours to match. I sent out all the resources ahead of time, but basically there's just a couple changes. The first would be HB 96, where they added a definition and clarified a definition of armed forces and added just the clarification that anyone asking for a tax refund that is on an extension to file their taxes automatically is offered the extension amount of time to claim a refund. With that, anything from the administration, other elected officials, public? All right, members of committee. No. All right. Moving on to the next topic. Second item tonight is the Athens Fire Department contract update. This was last fall. They began in the end of October, probably before that actually, working on negotiating a new contract with the Athens firefighters. They came to an agreement on a new 3-year contract with the exception of wages, which is on a one-year contract with a reopener clause for years 2 and 3 on wages only. I sent out the contract. I sent out with the highlights, the what all the changes were, and if there are, we can go through any questions or highlights of that. If we want to get into some of the details, there were a significant number of changes, and I'm sure Director Stone probably has a lot of them in his head. So with that, I'll move over to him. Did you want to have anything in specific?
If you sent out the changes, then, by all means, people can ask questions based on what they saw, but otherwise I'll leave it to the committee to ask questions.
Right. Other elected officials? Members of the public? All right. Member Wood?
What percentage changes did we? I did not have time to review the document. Apologies. What did the percentage increases end up at?
Excellent. So one of the bigger changes, one of the changes, they had a 3% increase in wages, and then they'll have the reopener negotiation in 2026 and 2027. It is a retroactive contract that will begin back in November 2025 and will run through October 2028. Some of the bigger top of mind changes, some clarifications on state of emergency overtime and rates, clarifying how all types of leave and how it's counted, and just some clerical errors. Added a new section on conversion of sick leave and how that's counted and how that's paid when you are within outside of 1 month of retirement. Insurance was one of the bigger changes, with some increases to prescription costs and use of prescriptions, as well as the deductible. An increase in uniform allowance. And then one of the bigger changes also was on the city side, a clawback, where new hires within the first 4 years of being hired and going through training, if they were to leave for a new role in another fire department, we can claw back some of the cost of that training up to 4 years. And those are kind of the higher level, bigger issues. If anyone has any questions on those, or if you saw something else that you wanted more details on. Any questions? No? All right. Next up is the Retirement Incentive Program. I sent out just the overreaching or the overall notes on that, Director Stone, so that people could be familiar with it. But I will let you go through your notes on that as however you'd like.
Sure. Thank you, Member Thomas. So what we're asking is for consideration by this body to approve the administration to offer to everyone in the city, not just members of the administration, but other elected officials as well, their employees, and any employee of the city, a retirement incentive program. And let me give you a little background on this. So as you all are aware, we are in a pretty tight budget situation. In fact, tight is probably being conservative in describing it. I mean, it's as tight or as concerning as I've seen it since I've worked here, and I've worked here a very long time. The primary cost driver, in addition to just all of the inflationary pressures that you all are seeing in your own household budgets, and the city is seeing as well, with it, whether it be construction or utilities or what have you, is healthcare. Healthcare is just a significant burden right now on the city. And the way that we fund healthcare, just as a reminder, we are full-time employees that are provided healthcare under the city's healthcare program are through a self-insured program. That is to say, we have a third-party administrator who functions like an insurance company, but ultimately the claims are paid by cash that the city sets aside for that purpose. In any given year, you expect claims to kind of balance out and have waves, and they go up and down. Some years are worse, some years are better. And over the past couple of years, we've had a couple of very bad years. And so what's happened is the medical fund, the 866 fund, for as you look and review the city funds every month, that 866 fund has been depleted and depleted and depleted. And we're really supposed to keep best practices 6 months of expected medical costs in cash available in that, and that's really gotten whittled down significantly. And so we're running into a situation where I'm very, very worried. And so what we're proposing is a retirement incentive program, because what we've found is there's a significant number of employees that stay working beyond retirement eligibility because the cost of insurance after they retire is something that they don't want to carry. And so we've designed a program that we think may cause people to say, you know what, I could go ahead and pull the trigger and retire if this program allows me to be able to afford health care in retirement for a little bit longer. And so what we're proposing is $30,000 per employee, up to $30,000 per employee through a couple different options. Those options are outlined in this retirement incentive program. Option one is that there's a stipend where you take up to $10,000 per year for 3 years into a pre-tax vehicle or a tax-free vehicle called a VEBA that's administered by our third-party administrator that then is paid to the employee for them to use towards deductibles or premiums on a retiree healthcare plan. The second option would be a taxable, so not pre-tax, but a taxable cash payment of up to $10,000 per year. And then the last option, and this would only be for employees that are in the OPERS system. We do have employees that are also in the OPMS system, the Ohio Police and Fire system, and Ohio Police and Fire doesn't have a service credit buyout, but OPERS does. A service credit buyout, which is time, not to exceed $30,000 in expense. And so, what does this do for us? Ultimately, we believe that this will get employees that are not only high earners, that is to say they're at the end of their career, and so are typically at the top end of their spectrum, but also high consumers of healthcare off of the city's healthcare plan. We did some rough math as to what the max end cost could be, and looking at how many people we thought eligible that might consider taking this. And we estimated that, really at the max, I think 18 employees could end up taking this. And so 18 times $30,000 would be $540,000 over 3 years. The savings that would be reaped from that could be as high as $6.48 million. Now, obviously, we wouldn't get remotely close to that because certainly we're going to have to replace some of those positions, if not all of those positions. But presumably the people that would be hired to replace them or that would move into those positions would be younger people. And we all know just by reality is that younger people tend to consume less healthcare than older people do. And so what we're asking is for authority to extend this incentive. The goal would be that, and the reason that I'm bringing to you now, and I'm going to roll it out to the workforce tomorrow, is that folks can think about it, because we would require them to make a decision by April 15th and how they're going to opt for these provisions or these options, and then subsequently they'd have to retire by May 31st. And so the thinking there is that we'll know, basically by April 15th, how many people would opt for this, and can do some projection calculations going into the future as to what additional savings we would have to reap. It is absolutely my goal to avoid layoffs or abolishment of positions, because that really doesn't save us that much money, because you ultimately end up paying unemployment for those people that you lay off. They have the option to opt for COBRA, So they're still on the healthcare. Should they choose to opt for COBRA and pay for it, they still potentially could be on our healthcare rolls. And so layoffs are not great tools, and they're just hard on the workforce. Oftentimes, the way that it works under whether civil service law or the labor contracts, the least senior people are the people that are laid off first. So the cheapest people, when it comes to both wages and typically in healthcare, are the ones that are laid off first. And so layoffs are just not the way that I want to approach this problem. And so we're really hoping that we have a few people that are interested in taking this retirement incentive. And we've heard, colloquially from employees, boy, I'd like to retire, but I just can't afford the health care in retirement. And so we think that this would be a tool that could maybe get people to cross that and make that decision. And then ultimately we can make a decision after that about what further cuts, if any, are necessary. Thank you.
Other elected officials? Members of the public? And committee members? Any questions? Member Clodfelter?
I think for the reasons you just laid out, this makes a lot of sense. My only question is, and maybe you have anecdotal evidence of this or reason to believe this would work, is going from April 15th to May 31st enough time for people to make that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question, Member Cloudfelter. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to start it now. And so, obviously we can't extend this unless this body passes it. But what I don't want to have happen is we wait until such time that that it passes to be able to inform the workforce. And so I'm going to inform the workforce now and say that, here's the program, it's being considered. If it passes, you have the opportunity. So the thinking would be you really have, the next 2.5 months or 2 months really to look at your finances and try to make a decision. But what we don't want to do is allow it to just drag on and on and on, because the purpose here is to see if it works and see if people opt for it, and then if they choose to, great, and we know. If they choose not to, that's something we know as well, and then we can decide whether or not we have to implement further cuts.
Member Wood?
Yeah. Gonna miss something. So, allowances for that. It looks like the option 1 and option 3 seem pretty clear where the funding line comes from. Option 2, the $10K per year, which budget line would that come from?
Thank you for your question, Member Wood. Ultimately, it'll come from the fund that the person is paid from, right? So, water employees paid from the water fund, it would come from the water fund. General fund employees pay for the general fund, it come from the general fund.
Thank you.
All right. I would just like to say I've talked about this several times with Director Stone in meetings, and I appreciate the time and effort that he's gone through to come up with this, working with Director Lucas and with the auditor's office. I think these are really thoughtful, intentional, and well thought out ways that we could address city finances. And as he said, try to avoid layoffs and see what happens. With that, on this one, can I get a motion to move this forward to next week?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. If there are no more questions on that, we can move on to the next one. The next item tonight is the designating depositories for active monies. We talked about this a few weeks ago. This was when the Treasurer's Office opened up the applications for institutions to apply to become public depositories for the city for monies and active monies. And that window closed this past Saturday. And so now it is time to designate those banks and institutions and the amounts that they will be permitted to hold up to a certain amount. Which I've sent out the information that will have changes on that, and the highlighted areas would be naming of the banks that will go in that, and that'll be in there by next Monday. And also that they will all, instead of saying 10 million per bank, it would be up to 15 million per bank. With that, any questions from the Mayor's office?
just a request that prior to the Chair of Finance and Personnel concluding this evening's personnel meeting, if you wouldn't mind recapping the plan for moving these items forward. We did see a formal vote for one of the items, and I heard no indication that the others wouldn't move forward, but would just appreciate a point of clarification.
Good catch. I realized that as I was doing this one. Yeah. Members of the public? Oh, sorry.
I mean, I'll just add, all I was just to say, Member Thomas described it perfectly. This is just step 3 of what we did. I have received, just as an update, I've received 2 applications from Chase Bank and from Hocking Valley Bank, which is what we're going to end up doing. They already hold our money. Chase holds. And again, keep in mind, these are the active monies. These are the monies that we use every day to pay our bills. You know, the community center brings in money. They deposit at Hocking Valley Bank. The code office brings in money. They deposit at Chase Bank. And the best way to think of it is that money gets recycled and we pay the bills with all that. So this is the active money. Currently, Hocking Valley Bank and Chase Bank are our 2 banks that would hold that already. We did send out applications to all the other banks here in Athens. I haven't received anything back. The reason I didn't want to put those in right now is that just in good faith, we did put the deadline on Saturday. If I get something that's postmarked Friday, you know, tomorrow in the mail, I would still like to consider them and let them have that opportunity. Don't really anticipate that happening, but that's why I thought I'll give it another day. If I don't see that, no big deal. And then, as she said, we'll have the updated resolution Monday to be voted on.
All right. Questions from the committee? Can I have a motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And as President McCary reminded us, can we go back on Title 17, the refunds and definitions, and have a motion to move this out of committee?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. And also for the fire department contract, motion to move this out of committee.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're back on track. Thank you. Last on the committee list tonight is then and now certificates. There was a list of those sent out from the auditor's office. These are payments that just came through and need to be paid within 30 days and came before the end of, it came at the beginning of the January, but before the budget for January was completely dropped. I think I've explained that somewhat correctly. All the amounts are in there, and if any has any questions about what those for, we can talk about those. Do we have any questions or comments from the mayor's office or other elected officials? Treasurer's office? From the public? From the committee? Any questions? All right. Can I have a motion to move these out of committee?
So moved.
Second? Oh, I guess I can second it myself, but that seems silly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that concludes finance and personnel. That concludes council for the night. Am I missing anything?